Hey everybody, I don't know why I'm doing this. I saw episode 7, and like a lot of people, I had a number of complaints. Some people were okay with it just being a carbon copy. A New Hope, they said that, no, that's fine. That's how you reboot a franchise. You know what works, you use what works, but it really bothered me. It really, really bothered me. And it really bothered me just how vacuous a lot of it was. I think, like most people, when I first saw it, I thought, that was a fine movie. It wasn't great. It wasn't perfect by any means, but it was fine. It's not much to it, but it was enjoyable, and it didn't have any prequel cringe stuff. So it's fine. But the more I thought about it, and the more I realized that I didn't want to watch it anymore, the more I realized how bad it was. The things just kept coming up that it was like, why did they do that and the other thing? And I am no massive Star Wars fan. It was something that I kind of grew up with. I've memories of seeing episode 1 and 2 and 3 in theaters. So those are the memories I have, like as a kid doing that stuff. But still, there's something special, a little magical about Star Wars, and it's something it's just really enjoyable to watch, and the best thing about it is the world that was created and the world that it is, and that's all George Lucas. He might not be the best director or writer, for sure, but the guy knows how to build a story, knows how to build a world, and this is a world that, especially like Knights of the Old Republic, the first one, when I played that, I was blown away by that game. Because of the world that was built, and this was built on George Lucas's ideas of what this world was that he came up with. So what I was gonna do, and I don't know why I'm doing this, but I wanted to rewrite episode 7. I just had it in me today that I just started thinking about it. So this is virtually just a one sit down knockout story of episode 7. And the primary issue here is not to just redo the whole thing, figure out something completely new. It's to use kind of the template that was set out. It's like if they had rewritten a few times, then maybe they could have come up with something a little more interesting. But so what I'm doing here, it's just I'm rewriting episode 7 and trying to use a lot of the ideas and the themes and the characters that they came up with, but just try to do it structurally better. That's going to make something that's more interesting, that's more something that I would want to see at least. So like I said, this is I started thinking about it this morning and at work, and then I got home and I'm just like, you know what? Whatever. Let's just do it. Who cares? So that's what I'm going to do. I wrote some notes. Just bear with me on the notes. And I'm just going to go through it. So I'm going to have... This is Star Wars Episode 7. Probably have a different name than The Force Awakens, but this is Star Wars Episode 7. So it's going to start out with... It's got Poe Dameron, still played by Oscar Isaac. I like Oscar Isaac. He intercepts some information that he needs. But anyway, so he intercepts this information. He's being chased down by the First Order. And this is Kylo Ren, it's the setup that you got anyway. Chase him down to this local little township area, and they're slaughtering the town members, and Finn is amongst the people who's doing the slaughtering. So far, so good, whatever. So Finn actually partakes in the slaughter. This is something that he's done before. This is something that he's engaged in before, and he had problems with it before, but he didn't stop himself. He didn't decry it or go against it or anything like that. He didn't feel great about it. But in this particular time, it doesn't feel right. And so you can see him, he's having a reaction to it. He's hesitant. And Kylo's there, and Kylo finds Poe. and is trying to get something out of him, but he's not especially adept at his force abilities, so he can't really do it like that. So he's trying to get Poe to answer. The way Poe is acting, the way that he's brave and funny and charismatic and all this sort of stuff, it makes Finn like him. And this is the tipping point in Finn's life, that he sees that this character, this person, who by the way is part of the Republic. It's not the Resistance, it's the Republic. Poe is just a member of the Republic. Kylo is a member of the First Order. The First Order are the final remnants who are lingering around of the Empire, and they're just trying to survive. That's what they're doing at this point. So Poe is a member of the Republic. He intercepted some information related to a very important issue, and Kylo and his people learned, figured out that Poe did this, so they're chasing him down and try to get this information out of him, get it back from him, so they know what he knows, so they know what they have to do to try to prevent that. And BB-8's still here, that's fine, but he gets left on the planet when they take Poe. And so Poe and Finn get taken up to the ship. On the ship, we've got Captain Phasma and General Hux, and they're talking about how dire the situation is, what's going on, how dire it is for the First Order, and how they're just they're scrappy and trying to recruit and doing whatever they can to make sure that the Republic doesn't snuff them out at this point. And you've got Kylo is torturing Poe, trying to get some answers, but again, he's not good at this, so he's struggling with it. He's not really getting what he needs out of him. And then so Finn, he's in the background, he's struggling with all these ideas. What do I need to do? And he likes Poe, he thinks he's a good guy, and he doesn't want to be in this anymore. So he finally breaks down and says, okay, I'm gonna go and break him out. He has access, he's a pilot in this. He's a trained pilot. He's not super great at it, but he's a pretty decent pilot. So he finally just breaks down and says, okay, I have to do something about this, and goes and releases Poe, takes him to a ship. They get out of there. And Poe is still he's still, the best pilot in the galaxy or whatever. He's still a really good pilot. Captain something or other of the Republic military, Air Force, whatever. So then it shifts to Rey, and we see Rey, who's abandoned on the planet, and she's a scavenger and tinkerer. That's what she's into. So all that stuff, the most beautiful parts of Episode 7 to me were the things with Rey in the beginning, when she was like sliding down that thing and on her little speeder deal and making the bread out of the stuff and all that. Those are the things that were the most beautiful to me. So that's what she's doing. She's scavenging, and she tinkers with stuff and makes little, rudimentary things. She stumbles upon BB-8, who was left on the planet. And BB-8's damaged, but damaged in a really kind of crude way. So she repairs him, but not great. And he wobbles around, it's very rudimentary repair. So he wobbles around at this point. But he's really appreciative, as appreciative as little robots like that can be. She realizes that he is, being a Republic droid, that he being pawned on this kind of remote area, he's likely to be worth a lot more than she would ever dream of getting, in years of scavenging. So she struggles with a little bit, but she goes to pawn him off and eventually does pawn him and gets the money for it and leaves. So then we get Poe and Finn. They crash on the planet and they're separated again, like in Episode 7. Finn stumbles around looking for Poe. He comes around the first development that he sees, and it happens to be Rey's development. She's not there. It's just where she did the pawning and where they have the little commerce and all that stuff. So BB-8 escapes this little area and returns to Rey. He doesn't know really what to do at this point, but he knows that Rey was nice. Rey fixed him, so why not go back there? So he wobbles his way back to Rey, and Rey's like, what the heck, I got rid of you, I took the money for it, so I've got to take you back. And so she tries to return him, to take BB-8 back to the pawn shop, and the place gets attacked by First Order people. This is kind of the outskirts of the Republic, so that's why there's less Republic mainstays or force there. You have more First Order influence in this area, but they're still extremely weak. So since Finn is a pilot, he runs into Rey with the BB-8. He knows BB-8 belonged to Poe. Did I say Finn or Poe in the beginning? I don't know. But so it's Finn who meets Rey with BB-8. He knows BB-8 is Poe's, so he thinks that he might be able to get him back. It might have some way of being able to find him, because he wants to find Poe. He likes Poe, and he wanted to use him to get some kind of a footing outside of where he was, the First Order. And he's still an orphan who was taken and indoctrinated into the system and all that stuff. So he struggles a little bit, but he's been struggling with this for a long time to come to this conclusion that he shouldn't be part of it. So they find a ship. They just steal a ship that's available. It's not that ship. They just steal a ship. And Finn is the one who's flying. Rey is the one who jumps on the guns. She's never flown before. She's never been off of the planet before, but she can point and pull a trigger. So she is just enamored with this idea of piloting altogether. She just absolutely loves it and is blown away. Obviously, this makes sense for her because she was left on this planet and she doesn't know where her parents are. She hasn't ever been able to leave. And to her, piloting is synonymous with being able to do that exploration to try to find where she belongs and find her parents and all that sort of stuff. So she just takes to it. BB-8 eventually shows them a map that says, okay, this is the Republic local headquarters. This is where you need to get. This is the closest safe area that you can get to. And this is where I need to go because I need to try to find Poe and find out what's going on with the Republic. So they're like, okay, we don't have anything else to do. Let's do that. So at this point, and this is where it's going to diverge quite a bit. And I'm trying to keep some of the themes that were brought up in episode, I don't know if they were brought up in episode 7, but I'm trying to have some of the themes that eventually come around. You'll see what I'm talking about. But so Luke doesn't just show up at the end in a stupid spinny camera thing. So Luke and his knights, because remember the Republic won, so he's been training new Jedi Knights and they've been fine. He's not an unhappy curmudgeon or anything like that. He's got him and his knights, and they enter an affluent club. It's something akin to the casino that's in episode 8. And I know I didn't like it either, but I think there's a beautiful contrast here that can be had because Luke would be all disheveled, his knights would be disheveled in lowly garb, and you can have that contrast between him and all the patrons of this place, and the fact that he doesn't have any interest and isn't intimidated in any way by the way that these people are or the way they act or how they act high and mighty or whatever else. But this is an outskirt kind of affluent town, so not a lot of Republic stuff here. So he goes there. They're eyed closely by the patrons of the place because they don't usually see Republic Jedi Knights coming in. Luke sits across from a man in elaborate garb. He had some kind of a tip related to this guy, and this guy knowing where he can find what he's looking for. So he goes and he sits down and he tries to have a simple conversation. The man explains that the Republic's jurisdiction is tenuous in this area and that he should leave before there's some kind of an issue. Luke explains that out of respect for the establishment, he's not just taking what he needs, but he needs information about the fugitive Sith that they're chasing. So security arrives at this point because this particular individual is, an important part of this thing. So security arrives at this point, and they're all decked out with their guns and all that stuff. It becomes more and more tense as they go a little back and forth, and the man slams his hands down on the table and stands up. All the guns come up, and then Luke does a force burst, where it just bursts all around every direction. It pushes everybody down, knocks tables all over the place, and drinks and everything goes flying. People in the distance topple over. Even his knights fall over and all that stuff. And Luke uses the Force to pull out the information that he needs from this guy. All of his knights pull out their lightsabers and are ready, and so he gets the information that way. Then we go to Leia. And just bear with me on this stuff. I swear it's all structurally put together in such a way. This is what I would like to see. I don't know if anybody else would like to see any of this, or if they think that episode 7 is perfect, or they think that episode 7 would be better. I don't know. But this is what I would like to see. So then we go to Leia, and Leia is walking out of her estate. It's beautiful but tasteful, estate. It's big but not crazy. She exits as a ship is descending. So the person comes out, you can see that they're a representative of the Republic. They ask her for advice on various political and military issues. So she's in semi-retirement at this point. She is still kind of involved, but the Republic at this point has been very successful. They defeated the Empire, they've been rebuilding, they've established a bureaucracy that's necessary to govern all these places. So they've been very successful, and she hasn't had to be all that involved, but they still come and they still ask her questions about what they should do in this situation or that situation, because of the integral role that she played in, the rebellion and all that other stuff. And she was a long-term, over the 30 years, she was engaged in politics, she was a senator and kind of a thing. So they want her counsel on this. So they ask about that, and she has been waiting to ask the question. She asked about the Millennium Falcon, whether there have been any signals or anything that has suggested that they've found it. It's been like a year since she's heard anything related to the Falcon and Han. So she asks if there's been anything, and they say no, we haven't heard anything. So she walks I just picture a winery, like she just walks her grape vines and uses some kind of subtle force, like to pull grapes off the vine or something like that, just as a little treat. So Finn and Rey arrive at the Republic, but they're trying to figure out who they need to talk to, what they need to do, but they can't figure it out because of all the bureaucracy, and there are all these things. No, you need to talk to this person. Or who do we talk to? What's going on here? Who's in charge? And it's just so massive that they have a lot of trouble trying to figure it out. Finally, they get to speak with either Admiral Akbar or pink-haired Laura Dern. I don't know what that, like Holdo or something? I don't know. I'm just going to call her Laura Dern. But you can introduce this character here if you want this to be a character. It would have made it a little more meaningful when she did something, in the later one, but whatever. So either Admiral Akbar or Laura Dern. So they're talking with Laura Dern, and while Dern is talking to some other people, they overhear that Poe has an agreed to rendezvous point that he was going to go to if anything went wrong, because he was on a mission trying to figure this stuff out. So he has an agreed to rendezvous point, and Dern and them don't realize, they're just not really thinking about it and don't realize that Finn and Rey are still there. But Finn and Rey insist that they're the ones, they can go find him, and they say, no, absolutely not. We're going to send people. You just don't worry about it. And they just go anyway. And then the Republic representatives, they bicker over the procedure and who needs to go and who's going to pay for it, that sort of stuff. So we just establish this a little more. So then we go to Kylo. Kylo is, he lost Poe, and he's throwing a fit about it. So we have that scene, one of the good scenes, where Kylo throws a fit and the stormtroopers react to it, because this is something you can establish as a character trait, is that Kylo's, he flies off the handle. He's not very controlled. He's not the kind of calculating, intelligent, he's not the Emperor. He flails and throws fits and that kind of thing. And Captain Phasma, who has a lot bigger freaking part in this, she questions the wisdom. She's talking to General Hux and questions the wisdom of the mission that Kylo is forcing them to go on. This important part of the First Order, he's forcing them to go on. What they are after, we'll find out here, and it should have been in the crawl, so hopefully you'll have some information about this. But so Phasma doesn't like this. She thinks this is a stupid mission. They need to be doing something else with their time and their resources. Kylo goes and has an audience with Snoke, and Snoke in this does not look like whatever the hell he looked like in this movie. The way I picture Snoke is hunched over. He's got a walking stick in each hand, so he has to inch himself along each way, hand after hand, and he's got a hood over and a mask. And the mask that I imagine is from Eyes Wide Shut. It's what Tom Cruise wears at the orgy in Eyes Wide Shut. That's what I imagine. So it's something that's really, it's got just a vaguely sinister or unsavory or whatever kind of bent. It's not clear. It's not evil or anything like that. And even gold like that, where it has some kind of ornate gold along with, in a white mouth, I think it is. But that's what I picture. That's what I picture of Snoke. And he's got his face covered, and he's got a soft voice, but Kylo completely respects him. So when he speaks very softly, but Kylo shows him the respect, and we learn that Snoke has had Kylo, not explained in very basic expositional dialogue, but something more robust than that. But he explains that Kylo is on a mission. He's trying to find Snoke's apprentice. Snoke has an apprentice, a very prized apprentice that Kylo is supposed to be finding right now. And that's why he's doing it and taking the First Order to go do it. And Kylo resists a little bit here. He says it's unnecessary. Kylo can handle it. And what we've got now, we can establish a foothold to be able to survive and thrive and then eventually challenge the Republic. But Snoke says, no, we need to find my apprentice. That's what we need to do. So make sure you do that. So we go back to Luke and his knights who are on, like I said, this was one day of thinking about this stuff. So his banter with the knights, I'm not sure the nature of what that would be. I think it wouldn't be jokey. It would be subtle, and it would be clear that they've spent, some good time together, but there are a few new ones, and they're just out trying to accomplish this thing, and they have the kind of culture of the Jedi, the standard culture of the Jedi that you kind of see in the prequels. It's like they're calm, they're collected, they don't worry about their self-interest, they worry about the interests of the Republic or the good in general, even over the Republic. So that's what they're concerned about, and that's the kind of thing that they talk about. They joke a little bit here and there, but that's that. So they end up on an inhospitable planet. with like thick brush and big overhanging trees and marshland, and they're attacked by some kind of fauna here, some kind of a monster thing that they get to. Some are injured a little bit, but nothing serious happens. They eventually overcome. It's just an action beat. It's an action beat you got to put in. I think it'd look great. Just have some kind of a, monster or series of monsters, just a pack of monsters that attack them, that they fight off using lightsabers and their force powers and all that sort of stuff. So Luke, during this battle, he's not as spry as he used to be, but he uses his force powers economically, and he's cool, collected, and smart about it, and they eventually overcome him. They find a lair, some kind of a lair that they enter into, and Luke, being the wise one, he figures out, the traps before they happen. He uses, he throws his lightsaber to trigger some, and they avoid him and get through that, and they find a cloaked figure who proves formidable with a lightsaber, and they fight him, but they are able to best him, and Luke takes him prisoner and learns from the prisoner that this wasn't the Sith that they were looking for. And that wasn't meant to be an homage to A New Hope, but take it as you will. But the cloaked figure warns that there will be dire consequences if they continue on, and they should turn back at this point and stop looking for this Sith. So Finn and Rey reach the location Poe was supposed to be at, but they find a First Order crawling around. So they first get into a bit of a infiltration mission kind of thing, and then they get into a little bit of a battle and get to escape, another action beat. And then Poe is being pursued. And I kind of, I struck this. I like when movies can have a slow burn, but I'm trying to structure this around kind of the way that Episode 7 was structured, so that we've got a lot of action beats so that people's attention doesn't go wandering. So Poe at this point is being pursued. He had to flee the planet because the First Order came there. So he's fleeing and being pursued in ships, and his is highly damaged, and he's barely outflying them just using the skills that he has. He needs to find a friendly planet so that he can abandon ship and try to find some other way to get away. And he's curving down into a planet's atmosphere to try to find somewhere to go, and still getting shot at and feeling the heat of the atmosphere as he's descending. And then finally, at the last moment, a ship flies in to save him, and it turns out to be the Millennium Falcon. So it saves him, shoots that ship. He has to get out of the ship as it's falling apart on re-entry, and they have to do a miraculous ejection and catch, from two flying ships, one of them burning up into pieces. And so Poe barely makes it, and Han saves him, and Han and Chewie save him. So Finn and Rey, having been unable to find Poe, they return to the Republic, where they encounter Han and Chewie, who are outside. And Han and Chewie both are a little harsh and dismissive. There's just a serendipitous encounter between them, and you get a little bit of the character there. They go in and they find Poe, and Rey hugs him immediately because she has heard about him, but Poe's like, "What? Who are you?" And then hugs Finn and says, "It's good to see you. I can't believe you survived." And likewise. And then Poe explains that what had happened, and even though he probably shouldn't be providing this information to a couple of random people, he says that he figured out where Kylo was going, and that's what he provided to the Republic, the leaders of the Republic. Then we shift to Captain Phasma. She goes to confront Kylo about the plan. She wants to change this. She's not happy about this, and she's not intimidated by Kylo. Kylo finally explains to her what's going on, that he has no intention of saving the apprentice, that he wants to go there to kill the apprentice, so that with the might of the First Order, so he can become Snoke's apprentice. Because then he'll be able to learn powers beyond your imagination, and that's how he'll be able to defeat the Republic. They'll be able to build a strong enough army to be able to defeat the Republic and reinvigorate the Empire. Phasma demands that they make more practical efforts to ensure the survival of the First Republic, and she doesn't believe in all this. I mean, she knows that he has some abilities and that kind of thing, but she doesn't believe that that's the way to win a war. She thinks that this is more egocentric on his part, that he's just trying to aggrandize his power, rather than worried about supporting the First Order and defeating the Republic, or at least putting a dent in the Republic. And she says that what they need to do is hit the Republic where they're complacent and be smart about their military tactics. But he doesn't buy it, and they just kind of go their separate ways at this point. So Phasma talks to Hux, and they discuss a plan of attack and kind of come to an agreement. Hux asks her what advantage they're going to have over the Republic, and she says that they fight for politics and we fight for survival. That's the difference. So they have their plan, Kylo's going on his. Then we go back to Luke. So Luke treks to a peak and he is meditating, and while meditating he, sees and hears flickers of Yoda and Obi-Wan saying various wise things, interrupted by a black drone that returns from the sky and provides a hologram of Laura Dern saying that they know where the Sith is and giving him the information about where the Sith is and how to get there. Then we switch back to Finn and Rey. So Finn and Rey run into Han and Chewie again, just outside, of the Capitol building or whatever else. And they get into a little scuffle, and during the scuffle, they're interrupted by Leia, who returns to the Republic, stronghold. She's got this elaborate ship, and everybody's coming up to her in adoration, just saying how wonderful she is, and blown away that she would return, and so thankful for everything she's done, and all that sort of stuff. And she sees Han, and they get into a whole thing. And so it turns out that Han, he would, at regular intervals, even though they're pretty comfortable and semi-retired, he would get into these smuggling missions, and just for, the kicks, or back to his old self, and that he's been gone for a while, and she's really pissed about it, but she's extremely happy to see him, and happy to see Chewie, and happy to see that they're okay, and they have their moments, and hugs, and kisses, and all that stuff. Poe comes back and kind of reconciles the whole group and introduces people to everybody else. And he tells Leia that Luke has the information now to find the missing Sith, the Sith that they're looking for. And she looks terrified. She had a secret hope this entire time that Luke would never find this Sith. And she says that they need to support him in some way, and she needs to do something here. She can't just sit in the background anymore. Rey and Finn and Han and Chewie, they all agree, along with some Republic soldiers, that they're going to go and try to help Luke, try to find him, since they know where he's going now, and they're gonna go try to find him and help him. And then Leia says Poe has to come with her because they need to go and deal with the First Order where they know they are. Luke, this is an important thing to be doing to try to find the Sith, and he believes it's the most important thing. But Leia and Poe think that, we have military things that we need to be doing too. And of course, there's some rhyming themes going on here. So Leia and Poe, they get together a little army to go do their thing, and Han and Chewie and Finn and Rey go to do their stuff. So during the flight, Rey is just overwhelmed. She absolutely loves everything that has to do with piloting, and just won't stop asking Han questions about this, and he's getting kind of a kick out of it because it's a new important thing for him to be doing, that he's teaching her all this stuff. So they spend most of the flight just going over the stuff and him teaching her about being a pilot, and he mixes in a bunch of smuggling stuff that she won't have any use for, but he finds interesting. But she just can't get enough, so she's sucking it up and loves every minute of it. But she's not an expert at it. She knows very little. She just tinkered a little bit, on her planet. That's why BB-8 was still wonky, and that's why she doesn't do any kind of, I bypassed the thing just magically because I know that. No, it doesn't do it. She just wants to learn this stuff, and does put the work in to learn this stuff at this point, and then will going on from here. Anyway. So Leia, Poe, and Dern, they create a plan to push back the First Order in another system and leave with a fleet to go attack them there, where they know they are. And then Rey and Finn and Han land on a planet to try to get some more support. They need some supplies and to refuel or something. But they need some supplies. And Han is meeting somebody he knows, and Rey has a vision from the Force, similar to the one in Episode 7. She has a vision, but it turns out Han is betrayed, and there are bounty hunters. He's betrayed to some bounty hunters that are there that were paid by the First Order to find them. And so they have to fight these mercenaries, and they narrowly escape. So just another action beat. So at this point, Luke finds, and we're at least 20 scenes in by this point, just so you realize. Luke finds the volcanic location, and he and his knights enter this giant rock cavern with a narrow walk up to a large citadel. But it's like a crumbling citadel. Well, not so the back of it is crumbling, but the front of it, it's all put together, and it's got all its doors, and it looks formidable. But the back of it is crumbling away. So, but none of it's guarded, none of it's locked. It's all open, and they all are just making their way through, trying to figure out what's going on here. So finally, there's a broad open area of stone with a little pathway to it, and all around it is just a moat of lava that's far down. It's like Mount Doom. It's down there a ways. And there's a little raised landing area with a throne on it, and it's got rock all the way over, rock canopy that covers everything. And there are stone stairs that lead up to the throne. So they see a cloaked figure there, and the figure rises and turns slowly toward Luke as Luke and the knights are approaching. Luke asks that he come quietly, and then we finally see his face, and it's Darth Maul, and he's mostly robotic at this point. He's all half machine. Luke and his knights, Luke approaches in the center, his knights fan out slowly to the sides. At the same time, Maul carefully removes his cloak and carefully folds it and places it on the ground without, he's not fidgety, he's not looking at what's going on around him. He just carefully places it nice and folded. He turns back around and positions himself in the center and closes his eyes. And Luke has no recognition of this person. He's never seen this Sith. He doesn't know who this Sith is or anything significant about him, but he feels a strong disturbance and has a slow dread creeping up. So Poe and Leia, they discuss Han. Leia just gets to wax rhapsodic about seeing Han again and how much she missed him and the things that they did leading up, because Poe's heard all of these stories a million times. They start talking about tactics, what they're going to do. And they believe it's like the central stronghold, and they had information on this before, but they hadn't attacked it before because they would have to commit a bunch of resources to be able to do that. But at this point now, it's getting a little dangerous, so they have to do it. So Poe and his fleet, all the fighters that he takes with him, they make it through the defenses pretty easily. They're cutting through with relatively little resistance, so they're a little suspicious of this. Then we cut to Rey and Finn and Han, who arrive at the location, and they find Kylo, who has arrived as well. And Kylo demands to know where Luke is, because he only knows vaguely the destination planet. He doesn't know exactly where Luke is. But, we'll say that Rey and Finn and Han, they do know for some reason, because they got to triangulate it better based on where Luke, because Luke and his knights went through the trouble of actually finding where it was on the planet, and they sent the information back to them. So it was just that little extra bit. So Rey and Finn and Han and Chewie, they have some Republic support soldiers, and they kill a bunch of Kylo's men, and Kylo's men and him kill a bunch of them. But it ends up just Kylo alone with Finn and Chewie and Han and Rey. And then he severely injures Chewie and Finn, so they're relatively out of commission, and then he kills Han. And Rey, in this moment of just sadness, fear, and desperation, she gets this force moment, this force push that knocks Kylo off of a mountain and down a hill where he breaks several bones, and he just gets completely broken on the way down. So he can't fight anymore. So Luke, as they're in the standoff with Darth Maul and all the other knights around, Luke pulls out his lightsaber, Maul force pushes him off of the stone landing, and Luke goes tumbling down toward the lava moat in the bottom, but he lands on some rocks and knocks himself out on a rock ledge toward the bottom. And then Maul fights all the rest of them, all the other knights. He fights all of them at once, and he's using... And this is the prequels kind of lightsaber fight. And I know some people didn't like those, but it makes perfect sense to me. Because the point is that they're made out of light, so they're incredibly light, and they're being wielded by people who have advanced reactions and reflexes and all that sort of stuff. So it would make perfect sense that they would look like a dance or a ballet, because it's really hard to get ahead of somebody who's using something that's as light as light. and has super advanced reactions. So it makes perfect sense, and I just like watching those a lot more than the stuff that was in the newer ones where it's like they have to heft these swords that are made out of light. That doesn't make any sense. There's a bunch of weight behind them. So it's like those fights, and so Darth Maul is doing all sorts of crazy stuff, and he's using force powers that you've never seen before. He's using choke, which you have seen before, but he's using things like wound, where it just hurts somebody, and fear, which makes somebody cower, and of course force push and all that sort of stuff, and he's using this against them, and he kills several of them. So Luke, he's unconscious, and he starts having visions of his father and Obi-Wan, speaking of balance in the Force. He wakes up and uses the Force to return back to the top to face Maul, and he lands, and then it cuts away to Phasma and Hux, who are levying a monstrous attack on the Republic capital. They had no way of knowing that they'd be able to get there with this kind of force, but they've been planning. Phasma just redirected all the resources to be able to try to do this, and so they attack the Republic that way while the main forces are away and just lay waste to it. So then we cut to Poe and the other Republic soldiers who find Snoke at the center. They get through the rest of the meager defenses and find Snoke. Snoke creeps from his raised landing with a walking stick in each hand and his mask on. Poe's dismissive and he's looking around. He's telling him, go find somebody. Who's here? Who's in charge? We need to figure this stuff out. And he says he'll get the old man a nice bed, so just come to me. And Snoke snidely reproaches Poe, and one of the soldiers raises his gun as he approaches. Snoke shoots lightning out of his hands and strikes that one down, and then Poe shoots immediately, but Snoke catches the beam in midair. This was awesome. I mean, this was one of the best parts of the movie. But he catches it in midair and then lifts himself off of the ground, levitates, and shoots lightning through the ground, the metal ground, and hits all of the soldiers at once. They all pass out, and then he disappears. So then we cut back to Luke and Maul, who are battling with lightsabers, but Luke is much slower, and he's just struggling to keep up. But he's using his force powers to barely compensate against the speed and versatility of Maul. So finally, when he's got Luke weakened, Darth Maul uses Force Wound, which just makes it feel like his body is tearing apart. So as he's going through this at the most dire moment, Luke he crushes brittle stone that was holding up a bunch of stuff above them, and it all comes crashing down. It nearly kills both of them. Maul regathers himself and leaps up and force grabs his lightsaber and is going to strike Luke, but the Millennium Falcon breaks through the crumbling edifice now and starts just firing from the ship at Darth Maul. And Maul deflects one of the shots from the ship, but the Force just blasts him backwards into the Citadel, and that's where he flees from. He just turns around and runs out of there. So they gather up Luke, and they flee. So Poe wakes, and he and Leia return to the capital, find most of it in ruins, and realize their mistake. They find, Admiral Akbar and Dern, or if Akbar dies in this attack, or whatever, if they still want to kill him. And they find Dern and rescue who they can. They initiate a rescue at this point. Luke explains the new threat, and then learns of Han, and we get a real Luke responding to finding out that Han Solo is dead moment. So he cries out and all that. And he gets to get it out of his system before he sees Leia. And then they all convene at a new location where Luke tells Leia what happened, and they start thinking about what they're going to do. This is just a low point. And of course, the basic structure of how these are supposed to work is that the second movie should be the low point, but I think this would be a very quick way to start it back up. And I think structurally, it has a lot more momentum and interest and intrigue, and there are a lot more things are moving in the background here that you're thinking about and waiting for and wondering about. So that would be my episode 7. Like I said, I don't know if anybody else would like it, but that sounds great to me. That sounds like something I would love to watch. And I didn't get to bake in any kinds of great themes, great moments of dialogue and all that sort of stuff. I didn't write the whole thing, but it's just today. This is what I thought about. I really think it would be good. It would be a lot better. But so somebody just let me know what you think and what you would change and what you would do and what you think about Star Wars now and storytelling and all that stuff. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. I know this is long. Hopefully it was worth it. Thank you.